You're listening to the Vikes Verified podcast. Hello, Vikings Nation, and welcome back to the Vikes Verified podcast. I'm Nick Eliason, here with Matt Mead, and this is episode 112, live from Cub Studios in Stillwater, presented by Pull Tab Sports. And with this weather heating up, it's officially grilling season in Minnesota. You're going to want to head down to your local Cub Foods, pick up some meats for the grill, pick up some sides. Everyone's going to love it. It's the best place to go for a one-stop shop. Make sure you pop into Cub Liquor on the way out and grab all the refreshments you need as well. Go to cubfoods.com or check them out in person. All righty, Matt. Busy day in Vikings territory. Today, free agency officially opens. A lot of Vikings fans expecting Minnesota to be gung-ho, signing people out of the gate. Unfortunately, that was not quite the case, but this may not be a bad thing, Matt. The Vikings make a couple moves today. We also lose quite a few players in free agency as well.
Correct.
Looking at the prices that a lot of people were going for today, I'm not necessarily too mad about losing some of these guys, but at the same time, we've got more holes to fill now. What has been the highlight to you on the first day of free agency for the Vikings?
The highlight is Ryan Kelly. The news announced right before we got into the studio here, but 2 years, $18 million, I believe, with $9 million guaranteed. This is a guy who's been in the league for 8-9 years now, has been a stalwart up the middle for the Colts, and I think this is a huge signing to help solidify the interior of this offensive line, which has been a huge need. And we've seen a rival in the Chicago Bears be very aggressive going out and getting Jonah Jackson, Joe Thuney, and now signing Drew Dahlman, which I thought they overpaid for him, which is getting to your point of teams overpaying for some of these guys. But have to respect what they're doing and being aggressive and trying to address that need. And I think the Vikings are on the right track to start doing that as well with the signing of Ryan Kelly. Now, the best thing that we could do is go pair that signing of Kelly and get us a large prize, and that is Will Freeze from the Colts. Sir. If we could go get him and get both of the Colts linemen, I think that's a great start to this free agency period. Mm-hmm. We also have Jonathan Allen in Minnesota at the facility currently, and one can only hope that he leaves tonight with a deal locked up to stay in Minnesota and really help solidify the other side of the trenches on the defense.
Yeah, and Jonathan Allen, 30 years old, from the Washington Commanders. He's a guy that just fits the mold to me. Multiple
repped by
time,
local agency.
Repped by IFA right here in Minneapolis, and multiple-time Walter Payton Man of the Year. He is a guy I think fits the culture and a guy that I knew we're going to be interested in from the jump. Speaking of good guys sticking around, Aaron Jones will remain in Minnesota on a 2-year, $20 million deal, $13 million guaranteed there. I really like this move, Matt. At first, you look at the depth of this running back class, and you might have thought, hey, we could move on from these guys, but nothing is certain when you draft a young running back, and there's a learning curve when it comes to pass pro, learning the offense, learning how to run a little bit more effectively in the NFL. So I like keeping Aaron Jones around, and as good of a player is I think he's even better leader in the locker room for this team. So I do not see any issues with that at all.
Yeah, I had mentioned this before. I thought a big reason to bring Aaron Jones back was more than just his play on the field, was what he brought off the field as well. Losing a guy in Cam Bynum is tough. A lot for the vibes reason, was a solid player, but no denying that we were going to pay or match that $15 million a year that he got from Indianapolis. So shout out to him for getting his bag. Yep. But this team had to kind of, pivot, and they went and did a similar thing that we saw with Josh Metellus a few years ago, and that's get ahead of the curve, get a guy in Theo Jackson locked down for the next 2 more years. And I think they got it at a great price point at about $6 million per year. I've been very high on him. I think when he's been given the opportunity, he's had a lot of chances to really show out and show that he can be a starter in this league. And I think with Harrison only having 1 year left, if we don't get Javon Holland, I think that's Theo's job to potentially have this year following from there. So a lot of upside to Theo Jackson, and very happy about the Aaron Jones news. I think part of that contract number was due to the fact that the running back market was so thin, and we've seen a ton of teams overpay for the guys at the top of each position. So Vikings were able to at least beat them to the punch there, not have to wait for other teams' offers to get on the table and then have to beat those. So shout out to the front office really locking down Aaron Jones.
I like it, and you're absolutely right. Aaron Jones would have by far and away been the best free agent back. So it's good to have him come back to Minnesota. We are excited about that. As for the safety room, Matt, I think another guy not to be slept on in this room is Jay Ward. This is a guy that could potentially see some reps as well. Nothing but positive things coming out of the Vikings camp about him this year. It seems like they're almost ready to let him take that step forward and start to play some defensive reps. A guy that has mainly been in the special teams role, but when he's gotten opportunities in the preseason, he looks pretty good back there. But as for the Theo Jackson signing, like you said, a deal like that, similar to Josh Metellus, that shows that he's going to play starter level reps this year. Like you said, getting ahead of the curve. And I love that extension from this front office. And I hope we continue to mimic that model with guys that potentially break out here in the next season or two. Let's go to who we've lost today in free agency. So a total of 5 as of now. We've got Nick Mullins to Jacksonville on a 2-year, $6.5 million deal. Johnny Munt to Jacksonville as well on a 2-year, $5.5 million. Pat Jones II, productive 7-sack season for us last year, 2 years, $20 million to the Carolina Panthers. Then we've got Cam Bynum, of course, 4 years, $60 million, huge deal there. And Sam Darnold, the future quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, signs on 3 years, $110.5 million. Big deal for Sam Darnold, and I can't help but say I'm thrilled for him. I'm excited for him. He's got to have a good place. A lot of respect for Kevin O'Connell in this organization, helping him get his career back on track, helping him land a deal like that. And I wish nothing but success for him, of course, unless it's against us. Looking at the Jacksonville deals, Matt, wasn't that interesting? Grant Udinski from Minnesota, now the offensive coordinator in Jacksonville. He takes 2 guys right off the Vikings roster that know his offense. He's worked a ton with. What were your initial thoughts when you saw those deals?
Smart move from a smart guy. I mean, you go get guys that, again, know the offense, can help provide that experience in the film room, which I think is where they're going to both help out the most, as they're not starting caliber players. But Johnny Munt is, quoted to be the best third tight end in the league by Kevin O'Connell, and Nick Mullins obviously has a lot of respect from this whole staff, being here for multiple years now. So very savvy moves from a guy in Grant to really, have some guys to lean on where he's not having to try to teach every single person in those rooms what's going on. These guys can help shoulder that load, and for them, I think it's a win-win. I think I was more surprised with Johnny Munt leaving. I thought that, with KOC's love for him, I thought they'd find a way to keep him here, but no denying, his ability to get $5.5 million is pretty good for him. So not surprised to see him take that money and still have a familiar connection down in Jacksonville. And another familiar route for a Vikings defensive end is Patrick Jones signing with the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. Very similar to DJ Wanham's career arc, and then also signing with Carolina as well. So 2 former Vikings down in on the Panthers rosters have now reconnected. Very excited for both of them, but I also was very happy with we were never going to pay him $10 million a year. So go get yours, and we're going to kind of keep moving with Dallas Turner, Van Ginkel, and Grenard, as those 3 have, just limitless potential, really.
Yeah, and I like the move, like you said, getting Dallas Turner more repetition on the field. It's not like I wanted Jones off the field when he got reps last year, but it was also, in the back of your mind, you're thinking, man, I want to develop this rookie a little bit more. Yep. Patrick Jones, you know what you get from him. He's a guy who was very efficient getting to the quarterback, 7 sacks. But I think if you lined him up 3 seasons in a row, I don't know if he would eclipse that number in any of the 3. I feel like he just had good opportunities to get to the quarterback because Grenard, Van Ginkel, we're seeing some double teams. So good for Pat Jones getting a nice little payday. Definitely excited for him. Looking at the rest of free agency, Matt, here, we've seen some teams in the division be very aggressive, like we said. One that stuck out to me today, a guy that I wanted to go after, but it was only if the money was right, was DJ Reed to the Lions. And you look at them losing Carlton Davis to the Patriots. They go ahead and pay him 3 years, $60 million. They say, okay, let's bring in a slightly cheaper replacement in DJ Reed, who also might be a better player than Carlton Davis. So you look at that, and a lot of respect for Brad Holmes. He's a great GM in this league. But the thing I want to point out about DJ Reed is that in his matchups against Justin Jefferson, I hate to admit this, but he's played him very well. He's a very competitive guy. Justin did, I believe he's got 2 touchdowns on him, but you look at the man coverage from Reed on Jefferson, and there's really not much separation. Reed is a competitor, and immediately after watching those matchups, knowing Reed was going to be a free agent, I wanted him in purple. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and now we have to see him twice a year in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually shocked at Carlton Davis getting $20 million a year at his age, kind of where he is career-wise. And then, you see a guy, DJ Reed, flip back over to Detroit at 16.5. I mean, that is a little bit high for my liking, but I thought for the kind of swap that they did, it was pretty good for them. They got younger, saved a few million, and still got a starting level cornerback. So was a guy I was definitely sad to see go. Paulson Adebo got signed as well. Charvarius Ward just signed, I believe.
Yep.
So the cornerback options are becoming a little thinner there. So the Vikings are going to have to get creative, and hopefully, I think, the top option for everybody here is Byron Murphy re-signing. So still very optimistic about them finding a way to keep him in Minnesota, but our top two corners are 5'10 and 5'11, so we're going to need a little bit more size whether Byron comes or not. So wouldn't be surprised to maybe see a guy in Shaq Griffin get re-signed to try to add some depth and some more size in that defensive room. But to me, we're off to a great start, and I think this is a good thing to kind of talk about Isaiah Rodgers, that signing.
Yeah.
Played for Philly last year, started 3 games, has had pretty good PFF numbers in man coverage and in the pass game, but really hasn't had a full-time starting role yet. So I'm interested to see if they plan to kind of keep him in that, jumping in for certain games and certain starts, or if they want to give him a full-time starter role. More infamously known for the betting as well 2 years ago, had to take a whole year off. So hopefully all that stuff is behind him, but I can bet on this is that he's going to start or provide an impact for this defense for this coming season, as I'm very high on his PFF numbers and hopefully seeing those continue to grow.
Yeah, he has been pretty sticky in man coverage. I do think, anything in this defense, any role or position that you get is going to have to be earned. Can he pick up a much different style of defense from the Vic Fangio defense that they play in Philadelphia? Flores is quite, I would say an opposite scheme from that. He's going to have to learn to play probably a little bit more press. He's going to have to learn to blitz off the edge a lot more. But I do like the signing, and I do think it's pretty good value. Would I have liked Paulson Adebo, Matt? Probably. A guy who broke his femur, and that scares a lot of people off, but just at 25 years old, you already see videos of him during his recovery already moving at a pretty high level. That was one free agent today that I felt like maybe slipped through the cracks. It's rumored that they gave him $55 million, which was originally reported as $30. At $55 million, I'm fine with passing on him, but for the original deal, which I thought was 3 years, $30 million, I wanted to lock that one up for sure. But at a higher number, of course not. Moving on, Matt. The quarterback situation for the Vikings has flipped in a matter of one day. Mm-hmm. Now with just J.J. McCarthy as a reliable quarterback under contract for us. So I think the current hope is that the Vikings can retain Daniel Jones. It sounds like Daniel Jones is deciding between the Colts and the Vikings. Is there anything on the top of your head, say the Daniel Jones signing doesn't work out, he elects to go elsewhere? Is there anyone off the top of your head that the Vikings could bring in as a veteran for, support for J.J. McCarthy, maybe to compete with him a little bit in camp? Anyone that you can think of?
A couple names that come off the top is Gardner Minshew and Mac Jones. I think both of those guys could sign and really fill that bridge type role. We saw both of those guys start games last season, so that they can provide fill-in level play. But I think the elephant in the room that has been really a dividing one, and that's the dark horse candidate in Aaron Rodgers. Now, I don't know how legit that is or how great I feel about adding him, but there is no denying that he is probably one of the top options left and is probably looking at teams that can be competitive. And for those two reasons, I think you at least have to have the conversation of what that would potentially look like. I'm still erring on the side of passing on that just because I don't know if I want to deal with all the theatrics that come with Aaron Rodgers coming to town, especially, if this truly is JJ's time, what is bringing in Rodgers for a year really going to do for that? So that's where I struggle with the signing there. But you put that out there in the room, it's pretty shocking how divided fans are between wanting to see A-Rod put purple and gold on versus saying keep him, 50 states away.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the take, right? You're either all in on him or you're someone who's like, I don't know many fans right now that are in between saying, oh, it'd be fine if we got him. No, you either want him or you don't. And in terms of him mentoring J.J. McCarthy in a way, Matt, interesting perspective, perhaps, with Aaron Rodgers being the deep thinker that he is, and J.J. McCarthy also being the bit of a deep thinker. If you look at what he shares on Instagram and his story frequently, is there any party that thinks that those two might be able to vibe on the same wavelength?
I could definitely see them vibing. They seem to have.
But is it the right vibe?
Yes and no. I think from a strictly learning the game, yes. I think from just all the other, like I said, the media circus that's kind of around him, it's somewhat of a gray cloud over him. No. So for that reason, I think in the film room, yes, he'd be a great asset, a great resource who could teach him a lot of pros, tips, and tricks that have, gotten him to where he is in his career. But again, how much is Aaron Rodgers going to come in and really want to be behind J.J. McCarthy? Probably not much. So I don't know how well that pairing would go overall with the idea that, J.J. is going to be the starting QB come week 1. So to me, there's some good things about it, but I think there's more bad things that would lead to me passing on to him. And I actually am intrigued by Mac Jones. I think that is someone who still has a lot of physical skills at the position, has a pretty strong arm.
Is it because he grittied that one time in the Pro Bowl?
No, but that adds to it. I think, there's some aura there. He can gritty. Might have to have a gritty off between him and McCarthy and JJ, but
doesn't do much for me.
Who's left? Gardner Minshew ain't doing much for me. So, can you name off Jimmy G's gone, so that Zach Wilson gone. So, the options that were out there. How about Kirk Cousins on a minimum deal? I didn't even bring that up.
Well, that's now the smoke. Daniel Jeremiah bringing it up. And I want to say you might have been a couple weeks ahead of Daniel on this take.
I was.
If I remember correctly. And, it'd be interesting to see the reception from the Minnesota fan base. I feel like a majority of the hatred they had towards Kirk Cousins was because of how much money he made. So I'd be interested to hear that crowd's take if we got Kirk Cousins back on a vet minimum. But, unfortunately, that's not going to happen because he's now being essentially held hostage by the Atlanta Falcons, which I would love to be held hostage for $27.5 million a year. You could gladly do that. But at the same time, they will not trade him now. He's going to be a backup to Michael Penix. And, I would have to say, is this a grass is greener situation for Kirk Cousins? He thought, hey, I got a couple more years left in my prime. I want to go somewhere where I can contend, maybe get on a team that's going to make a playoff run. And now all of a sudden, you're forced to mentor this young quarterback a little bit and be ready if he goes down. So the tides have turned quite a bit for Kirk Cousins. But I will say that dream was alive for a couple days. The vet minimum, Cousins back in Minnesota. Man, wouldn't that be interesting?
I think I'd rather have Cousins on a vet deal than Rodgers on like a 15 to 20. I think Cousins would probably come in with understanding of, okay, I'm kind of at that point where I am going to have to be the bridge guy. But, Jeremiah and me had a very similar mindset. It's an interesting one, but it doesn't seem like the Falcons are going to budge on that maybe per se. So I think, between I think the next kind of QB dominoes to fall are Daniel Jones, Aaron Rodgers, and Russell Wilson. So I think, between those three guys, those are the next three that I think will make moves, and then you'll see some of those lower tier guys start to fill in gaps that are still there. So to me, it's an interesting one. I think Daniel Jones is definitely first choice, but with the Colts probably offering more money and a chance at actual playing time, I think it's something that's going to be very interesting for him to make a decision. Do you want more money and a chance to get to a starter position for a longer time, or do you want to try to do what Darnold did and maybe not start the whole season, but start a few games and at least build your resume where you have a small but positive resume that you can then take into free agency and say, hey, this is what I was able to do. Now give me X amount of money. So to me, I think if he was to sign, he signed here originally to get under Kevin O'Connell's tutelage and to learn the offense and to really try to repair himself. I think he's going to try to stay in that realm and understand that I may not start the whole season, but for a career path, that's probably a better decision.
And you sign another 1 year if you're him. You're still young enough next year to get back in free agency and, like you said, have that card in your pocket. I was studying in this offense with the coach of the year, et cetera. I think it only boosts your value than if you try to step out a season too early, go start 7-8 games next year, kind of sputter a little bit, and then your value in your market is completely tanked for the following year's free agency. So I do agree with you. I'm going to throw this out there. Good tweet that I saw today for Vikings fans panicking. This is a very panicky fan base a lot of the time when we don't spend the money right away. We don't go get the guys. Well, we got all this cap space. Why aren't we making moves? Quasi, wake up. He's napping on the clock. This is spot on right here from Jackson McIntyre at Too High Coverage on Twitter. The amount of bad and average players getting $10+ million a year average annual value contracts is astronomical right now. Teams standing pat through this wave are making the right decision. This is why I think he's right. You look at the Patriots. Completely different approach from us, right, in this free agency. Huge amount of cap space. I believe they're number one in the league in cap space. They went out and just started signing. Milton Williams, $26 million. Milton Williams, great player. We watch him in the Super Bowl. But Milton Williams is now the highest paid player in Patriots franchise history. The highest Tom Brady ever got paid was $25 million a year, AAV. So you just look at them. Are they blowing money just because they have money? And just to get guys there early? It seems like that. Carlton Davis, Josh Palmer getting $36 million a year. Some of these contracts I look at and I'm just like, whoa, like, it's exciting to sign players, but when you really think about it and what their cap hit's going to be later on, it's just like you better hope this chemistry works out on this team, because you've now taken a significant chunk of your cap space in just one day. And they still don't have, a number one receiver up there in New England. So to me, I actually like this approach, kind of leveling off at the beginning, and then maybe as this week progresses a little bit, we're able to get some guys that flew under the radar for cheaper contracts, because they're obviously, they're not competing with as many offers. So I think, the best might be to come for Vikings fans later this week. So I'm just saying, relax a little bit. It's not like we're not working behind the scenes. We still got the cap space, and they're going to use the cap space. And you might be surprised on some of the steals we get mid to the end of this week.
Yeah, I agree. And to me, I think once you let that market settle, it does provide some opportunity to go in there and get a little bit better deal versus what you see at the beginning of free agency, which is a bunch of overpaying, teams really just
bidding wars. We don't want to be in on bidding wars. I'm just, unless it's for an absolutely desperate need. They said we were in a bidding war for Javon Holland earlier today, and I'm thinking to myself, is he worth 16, 17 million a year? I mean, I don't know necessarily. He's a good player, but do you want to pay guys that kind of money that are coming off their rookie contract? I don't know.
So to me, I think, the next question I have is with the signing of Ryan Kelly, his main position being at center, I think there's two guys that I'm really highlighting on the line that are going to be in question moving forward, and that's Garrett Bradbury. Has now probably a chance to get cut. It'll be interesting to see if they try to maybe fit Kelly into a guard role, but with his main position being at center, I think his status is definitely in question as a Viking. Second guy would be Ed Ingram. If we cut him, we save almost, I believe, $3.5 million. So how do you feel about both those guys currently, and do you see either of those two getting cut in the next, let's say, week?
Ingram's cap hit, I see him as a more likely cut. I believe that there's got to be a little bit of trade value out there for Garrett Bradbury.
I mean,
can you get a sixth for him? Can you get something this year in the later rounds? Then you can either package that or just select in the 6th, 7th round. I would think there's got to be something there. He's not, a bottom 5 starting center in this league. I would argue he's somewhere between the 13 to 18 range in terms of starting center. So, a middle of the road center. You could look at a couple teams around the league right now that do not have anyone, but they've got draft capital. Someone's got to be willing to cough up a pick for Bradbury in my mind.
Yeah, and that's what I really hope is that's why I wasn't going to be on board with cutting Bradbury, just because he is a starting level center, and to just cut him and have to eat that dead money is just really, in my mind, not the smartest thing to do. I would rather find a way to implement Ryan Kelly in maybe a guard position to keep both of those guys on the offensive line, and if Bradbury were to leave this offseason, then you transition him back to his original spot at center. But to me, I am on board with cutting Ed Ingram. I think that there are better options out there that they can sign and replace him with, whether that's through the draft or free agency. Ed Ingram has had his opportunity, more than enough opportunities, and has not shown enough for me, which is unfortunate because it's another second-round pick that we most likely will be having to cut. But again, this business is all about results, and he just hasn't been able to put that on the field. So,
God, he had a couple stretches, though, where you thought it was maybe going to work out. He'd have 4 or 5 games in a row where it was, okay, we're seeing something in the run blocking game, and then, the penalties came back, the false starts came back, the pressures allowed came back. So, yeah, it's unfortunate how that worked out. I really thought him coming from that national championship LSU team, he was ready to go, plug and play. He worked out a little bit. I'm trying to think, Ohio State guard a couple years ago that we drafted. Who was it? Big
Ohio
bust.
State guard.
Big bust.
Well, we drafted Elfline, but he was a center.
No, a couple years ago. His guard, we thought he had starting potential. Well, anyway, Ed Ingram panned out better than him, but still, not quite good enough, and he's going to end up being a cap casualty in my mind.
Well, and to me, that is really where he's at. He's going to become a cap casualty, and that at this rate is just going to have to be kind of what it is to me. But I do think that there are still some good guard options in free agency. We've highlighted, obviously.
Wyatt Davis is who I'm thinking of.
Yes, correct.
Yes.
Yep.
Did not pan out.
Still got Will Freeze out there as the top option, but there's a guy in Tevin Jenkins that I'm pretty high on from the Bears with them really retooling their O-line. I think he's definitely on the market to go sign with a new team. He'd be my plan B there.
Yeah.
And then plan C would probably be guys like Will Hernandez, the guard from the 49ers. I think he could be a fit here.
He had great tape up in New York when he was with him.
I wanted Becton, but with us signing that assistant coach, it sounds like there was some little bit of beef between those two. So I don't really. Yeah, apparently.
Really?
Carter's
Fill me in on the beef.
Carter's got a hard coaching style,
Yeah.
and apparently Becton wasn't very fond of that. This was when he was overweight as well. So I think it might have been a little bit of him trying to get on his ass, and Becton maybe still a little bit immature. Who knows what it was, but from what I've read, it's that the relationship isn't exactly smooth per se. So to me, I would love to have a guy like Becton, a behemoth on the line, but with the fit there, I don't know if that's as realistic as we think. So, Nick, with that being said, we have had 2 impact free agent signings. If you had to give a grade on these 2, what would you give?
Separately, I'm going to go ahead and go B- on Rodgers. I think with his versatility, I mean, he's got sneaky good man coverage numbers if you look PFF, and I do think he can play a role. This is, if we had a deep cornerback room, I'd probably put this in the C range, but, given the current state of our cornerback room, we need bodies and we need guys with experience. Guy who played in 15 games last year, 3 starts, B- for Rodgers. I'm going to give the same grade for Ryan Kelly, B-. And I think Ryan Kelly's a good player. He's a mean player in the middle, but you got to also know he is not a long-term solution for the Vikings at center. For those of you thinking that right now, he's 31 years old. Not saying he's going to hang it up in the next year or two, but at 31, you're not necessarily looking at a long-term trajectory with Ryan Kelly as our starting center. It seems like more of a bridge until we get to the next guy or a backup, in my opinion. But I'm going to go B- for both. How about you?
All right, so we see eye to eye on one of them and not on the other. So I agree. I think Rodgers is a B- addition there. I think he's a good third, fourth corner for this cornerback room, but is not maybe the guy that I want 1 or 2 on the outside there. So to me, I think B-. It's good to get another body in here, one that can be at a starter level. But I still need to see a little bit more from him consistently, as he only played in or started 3 games last year before I really increased that rating there. And for me, I'm gonna give Ryan Kelly's signing a B+. I've been I've been a little bit higher on him than you probably throughout this whole free agency process, but I think his veteran play, his ability to play up the middle, and hopefully have some guard ability there is very exciting. And I think for the rate that we got him, only $9 million guaranteed, is pretty damn good for what these old linemen are getting paid right now. I want to say Patrick McCarry got a pretty hefty contract.
He's about 12-13 million a year.
The Packers paid Aaron Banks $77 million, and he had some rough PFF numbers. So overall, what we're able to bring in a guy with starting level caliber in Ryan Kelly, I think is going to be huge, and I think he's going to blend in with this offensive line really well between guys like Brian O'Neill, Christian Darrisaw, and whoever at those guard positions.
Yeah, I think they're going to end up giving Brandel another shot here at left guard. That's my personal opinion, but there's also been some chatter about Walter Rouse potentially moving inside to the guard position. Late round pick for us last year. I'm not sure how to feel about this. I know for a fact he couldn't be a starting tackle right now after a few reps in the preseason, and that's not to dog on him. He's a young player, but a lot of time for a tackle that necessarily isn't quick enough to stop the quickest edge rushers, it makes sense to move a guy like that inside. At the guard position, you don't have to slide as far laterally. You don't have to have as good of a get off on the edge. So to me, that's an option for sure. We are going to make another move or 2, though. Absolutely. I wouldn't be surprised to see 3 more moves. You got to also think draft. There's opportunity to get a guy like Gray Zabel, North Dakota State. There's some interior guys in this draft that are not to be slept on that could provide immediate impact. So to me, Tyler Booker, Alabama, where's he going to end up? These are all options for Minnesota in potentially the first, second round. My question to you is, there's been reports of the wide receiver 3 position for Minnesota potentially being in jeopardy a little bit. I like Jalen Nailor personally. I know we both do, but there's a few plays left out there last year, a few things left to be desired. He's got great speed, which I like. I think he complements Addison and Jefferson well. But you got to also think that there's very high likelihood that Jordan Addison misses the first 3 games of the season. leaving everything in the receiving game on Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson's shoulders for the most part. With Cooper Kupp being released on Wednesday, this fit seems too perfect, doesn't it? Come into O'Connell's system, just not much of a learning curve for Kupp at all. He can play a big role the first couple weeks if Addison's out, and then he can kind of ease in with Jalen Naylor and, provide depth or be the starting wide receiver 3. So, what are your overall thoughts on that? And what do you think the number we could get him at is as well?
I'm all in on bringing Cooper Kupp to this team. I think, like you said, his familiarity with KOC in this offense should provide a pretty seamless transition for him. And I think he's still got, get him out left in the tank to provide, an impact for this offense. So to me, I think definitely want to see him signed here. I would say it's probably going to be a 2-year deal. Let's say 2-year, $18 million, maybe paying him, $9 a year with 10 guaranteed, something like that. I mean, he's probably going to ask for something in the 20s, but I think, that's something where I'd be comfortable bringing him in, paying him, about $9-10 million a year, and really giving us a solid trio of wide receivers, not just kind of a third guy to fall back on, but 3 guys that are going to really provide a lot of pressure on that defense. And then you pair in TJ Hawkinson, Aaron Jones, and hopefully a young rookie running back to pair with AJ. So a lot of weapons on this offense. It's all just going to be about, can our QB distribute the ball? As we'd like to say, we think JJ is going to be able to do that and more. So very excited about that. I think that's a guy to definitely keep an eye on, and hopefully is a guy that we can see brought back. As I know some people are talking Thielen and different guys, but to me, I think Kupp's got a little bit more realisticness towards getting here, especially with Devontae signing in LA.
Yeah, it's surprising to me you're not standing on the table for Adam Thielen, man.
I would be, but I just don't think it's realistic. If I thought there's a realistic chance, I'd be all over it, man. Roll Mavs.
Horns down.
Roll Mavs.
But anyways, I want to point out a nice stat here that we came across the other day. This is Sean Borman, NFL, on Twitter. You look at the price of premier edge rushers in this league now. Some of these deals the last couple of days, Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, both guys who were thought to, potentially be on the move, Matt, but you know what they say, money talks, and these guys both stay in, programs that have had a losing culture over the last handful of years. So the Vikings have a unique scenario, and that is 3 for the price of 1. And I'm talking production between Jonathan Grenard, Andrew Van Ginkel, and the ascending Dallas Turner, costing us $33 million a year average annual value. And then you look at Myles Garrett, he costs $40 million a year. Max Crosby just signed for $35.5, and Nick Bosa for $34 million. So with the production we got from Grenard and Van Ginkel, arguably one of the best pass rushing duos in the league last year, to have all 3 of those guys under contract for the price of 1 premier edge rusher is not something to be slept on. And I just want people to give our front office credit for something like that. And so many people are caught up in the frustrations of not signing who they want or spending enough money on this person, or the draft picks that we missed out on the last couple of years and didn't pan out. Let's take a look at how masterful that is, because not a lot of teams can say that, and a lot of teams' pocketbooks are getting a little bit lighter after having to sign these guys for extreme amounts of money to keep them around. Correct.
I think that's a really a bang for your buck. Shout out to this front office for being able to construct those 2 contracts, and then obviously with the addition of DT through the draft, you're paying that rookie amount, which is just a steal, I think, and is going to continue to look better as he gets older. He's a very young prospect, so I think the sky is the limit for him, and we'll see a jump in his play this year. So we have already mentioned this multiple times, but what teams are paying guys at certain positions just because of where they are with who's out there is just not really equally in the line of where they should be getting paid. So I'm glad that we were able to get guys at a better rate versus having to overpay for a guy like Milton Williams, who got a contract similar to Christian Wilkins. And I think that
he's getting paid more than Dexter Lawrence, more than Christian
There's
Wilkins.
A substantial difference between those two. Not saying anything against Milton, but Christian Wilkins, Dexter Lawrence are some of the best in the league. So to me, that was a little bit of an overpay by them. Now, Chris, I've got a fun question for you on our 2 free agent signings. But before that, the Vikes Verified podcast is sponsored by Drip Drop. Are you looking to stay hydrated during your busy, active day? Drip Drop helps you rehydrate quickly and efficiently so you can keep pushing forward without missing a beat. Whether you're hitting the gym, chasing after the kids, or powering through your workday, Drip Drop is your go-to solution for hydration that works as fast as you do. Don't just drink water. Get the rapid hydration you need with Drip Drop. Use code POLTAB for 20% off your order.
Alrighty, getting
All
Chris
right.
involved a little bit here, Matt. Fire away.
Yep, Chris. All right, I got to know, based on the two free agent signings, Ryan Kelly, center from the Indianapolis Colts, and Isaiah Rodgers, cornerback from the Philadelphia Eagles, which one is your favorite out of the two and why?
Oh, that's tough. Center. Kelly's got to. I mean, we got to bring it, right? We need to bring. We need that front end to just perform next year. I mean, we got all the tools and everything in place. We just that front line just kind of destroyed us towards the end of the season.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right.
I agree. I think the interior of this team is definitely a bigger need now. It is interesting because our cornerback room is pretty, in a influx right now. I think it's the best way to describe it. But I thought Ryan Kelly was just a ginormous signing just to kind of provide some stability there and not have to wonder about his play. I think as long as he can stay healthy, we're going to get a good level of play out of him. So to me, I'm very happy about that and hopefully pair of large fries with them.
Let's give us a side of fries. Chris, I got one more for you. Keep you awake over there. This is a guy that knows hockey. J.J. McCarthy, former hockey player, very talented hockey player in high school. He was out at the state tournament a couple times this last weekend. My question for you, I never played the game growing up. Obviously, in the state of Minnesota, we know all about it. I watch quite a bit of hockey. Is there any intangible factors or attributes that you think translate well from the hockey rink to the football field?
I think hockey players make the best athletes.
Okay.
No doubt. You have agility, you have balance, you have speed, you have endurance.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to have it all to play hockey. You have to have skill, hand-eye coordination. There's just too many factors that, without a doubt, hockey players make best athletes.
Yeah, and I think that, something I thought about is in hockey, the anticipation passing the puck, moving the puck around the rink. I think that is probably so beneficial for your vision as a quarterback. You think about being able to see the whole ice out of your peripherals and, making reads in anticipation and putting the puck on the money. I think that, J.J. McCarthy, I think he's kind of got the best of both worlds there. And I'm excited to see what he can do. I like that, he came to a good spot, right? He likes hockey and he's got that background and he's in the state of hockey. So I think he was fired up to be at that state tournament this weekend. And, after today, it's pretty much turning the keys over to him. So excited to see what he can do and excited about his future. I think the most exciting thing to me, Matt, is that you look at any NFL draft analysts, they say J.J. McCarthy is likely the number one quarterback in this class. Yeah. You look at last year's class, obviously Caleb Williams, Drake May, guys at the top of the draft that were highly coveted. Cam Ward highly coveted this year as well, but they're saying J.J. McCarthy would by far be the number one prospect. And to be able to get him at 10 last year, I think is just I'm ready to turn the keys over and just give him the reins.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. A lot of pundits do believe that McCarthy would be the top option here, and not only does he have the hockey background, but he has the flow that not only fits in hockey, but in Minnesota. Yeah. And shout out to our guy, John King, dropping the all hockey hair team list. If you haven't had a chance to check it out, go watch it. Always a gem of a video every single year. But man, JJ really, he could put up a running. If you put a lid on that guy and threw him out there on the ice, man, he might make the list.
Yeah,
so.
let's sign him to the Wild.
All right, there we go. See if JJ
two-way
doesn't work
contract.
out.
Yeah,
he's going to the Wild. Billy G, you heard it here first. We need 10% of that contract though for the idea.
All righty, Matt. Let's get into our final segment here, and that is the Stoli Vodka Scout of the Week.
Yes, sir. Oh, man, this is one of my favorite segments of the week. Stoli Vodka. Are you looking for something unparalleled in the vodka game? That is Stoli. Whether you're looking to mix it on the rocks, in a cocktail, whatever it may be, Stoli goes with so many different things and provides so many different memories. So if you're looking to really up your game and have a great time, go look no further than Stoli Vodka and find it at your favorite liquor store today.
All righty, I'll get us started off here, Matt. I've got two of them. First one's going to be Gray Zabel, previously mentioned out of North Dakota State, and the second one is going to be R.J. Harvey out of UCF. My reasoning for this, Matt, Gray Zabel went to the Reese's Senior Bowl this year, probably a projected 3rd to 4th, 5th round pick. With his performance stifling nearly every SEC defensive lineman, he's boosted his way now up to potentially late first round status, second round status. So to me, I don't think you can go wrong with NDSU linemen a lot of the time. You just look at their program in general. They've just bred NFL linemen for years now. They got that blue-collar mentality. He's from South Dakota, farm boy. I want that strength in our interior, and a guy who just takes his job seriously and goes out there with pride every single week. And I think he's a guy that has been coached well, and I think just fits culture in Minnesota. So he's my first one, and R.J. Harvey being the second one out of UCF. Just watching a little bit of his tape, he's going to be probably, I would say, a 3rd to 5th round running back, somewhere in that range. And he's a guy that just defenders bounce off him when you watch him. He's got a super strong lower body. He's a guy that runs through contact, and he also turned some heads with his 40 time. I believe ran a 4.41. People thought he'd maybe be a 4.5 guy, maybe a little bit higher than that. Well, he proved that he's got some breakaway speed. And when you turn the tape on, man, it's hard to bring him down.
Yeah, I this running back class, man, I'm all over. I think there's so many good options, especially in the middle rounds. It's just got a lot of depth to it. And, I'll start off my scouts of the week, and that starts with a guy in Damian Martinez, running back from U of Miami, down in Florida. He's a bruiser back. He's got, I believe, the highest rate for yards after contact. So this guy can take a hit, still keep going, and get you yards where you need to. I think, him and Cam Scatabo are probably some of the more physical backs in this class. I'd be very happy with either of those two, but I've been really digging in on Damian Martinez's game, and I think what he's been able to do in a starting position for multiple years down with the Hurricanes, and be able to really take on that workload and that beating and put up these consistent numbers. And his speed is a little bit better than you think. I think it was in the low 4.4s, or low 4.5s. So still has some speed for a bruising back, and that's something that I think would pair well with a guy in Aaron Jones. So to me, keep your eyes out on Damian Martinez. The second guy would be Tyler Booker, guard from Alabama. We've talked about him a few minutes ago, but an absolute behemoth on the O-line there, down for the Roll Tide. And I think, he could really provide an impact there. And I think what's really unique about this position now is I think it might be one that they look to take in first round with what guards are getting paid in the draft. I think if they do not sign another guard in free agency, definitely expect us to draft one with our first pick. And I think that's a good way to pay a guy on a rookie contract and still help fill that gap at the guard position. So Tyler Booker is definitely high on my list come April.
Okay, Matt. And I've got one more for us. And this is a new segment. This is going to be the Duke Cannon Diamond in the Rough. This is going to be a guy maybe on the undrafted level, late round pick that you like to make the team potentially. Duke Cannon, are you a hard worker? Then you need a soap that works just as hard as you do. Look no further than Duke Cannon and their seasonal selections, including Trophy Game, Buck Moon, and the ever-popular Candy Corn. As you can see here in front of us, tremendous presentation from Duke Cannon.
New branding, by the way, too.
It looks good.
Elite.
It smells good. It feels good. All of the above. Smell like you give a damn with Duke Cannon. Work harder and smell better. All right, Matt. My Duke Cannon Diamond in the Rough is going to be a Minnesota Gopher, and I know you like that.
Yep.
And that is Justin Wally,
all
cornerback.
Day, all day. Sign me up.
We had a chance to look at this guy a couple times in person last year. Couple picks that we saw almost to the crib. I think we saw one pick six from him. He's a guy that's dynamic with the ball in his hands if he gets on it. And I like the idea of always keeping one or two guys home. I know you do too. And Justin Wally is my diamond in the rough.
Yeah, both Wally and Lindenberg I would love to have in the rounds 5 to 7 to me. So great pick there. I'm going to stay in the great state of Minnesota as well, and I'm going to dig a little bit deeper, and that is in the great city of Mankato.
Oh.
There is an old lineman, Marshall Forner. He's a guy that is not going to get drafted, but keep your eyes on him. Undrafted free agent, could definitely be a guy that they look at with local ties here. I'm probably, gassing him up a little bit more than some, but he is a guy that NFL people have their eyes on, and I would love to see him get a chance as an undrafted free agent and see if we can keep this Mankato to the NFL train rolling.
Okay, well, as long as you're going on that route, then I'm going to have to shout out Minnesota Duluth offensive tackle Aiden Williams as well. Yep. Slightly better than Forner. He's a little bit better, better frame, more athletic. This is a kid from Alaska, okay? I had a chance to meet him in my days up at UMD when he was just a young freshman, and the way he panned out, he's now at the East-West Shrine Bowl, had to sit out the game due to turf toe injury, but they're saying at his pro day, Matt, he's gonna test out of the gym. He's gonna kick the 40's ass. They're saying he's gonna run somewhere in the 4.8 to 4.9 range, potentially a high jump on vertical and broad as well. So we'll see what happens with the local product. But, always good to get a couple of local stories here.
I'd take either of them, man.
Take either, yeah. Like you said,
Nobody
keep the
else
pipeline
is dropping
going.
These names.
Nobody else is
that.
dropping these. NSIC to the NFL. Let's see it. Got to shout out some local prospects. This is the Vikes Verified podcast. Thank you guys for tuning in. We appreciate it. And like I said, be patient. The best is yet to come in this free agency period for the Vikings. We're going to be working around the clock here and see what kind of pieces we can put together. It's not, the end of the world if we don't get the biggest names. I would like to see probably somewhere between 2 to 4 more free agent signings at least with our lack of draft capital. But don't sleep on some of the young guys on this roster. Like I mentioned earlier, the Jay Wards, the Levi Drake Rodriguez, Jalen Redmond, who just signed an extension, all major contributors next year that people maybe are not thinking of as much as maybe they should be. This is episode 112 of the Vikes Verified podcast.
Yes, sir. Like you said, we're just getting started. I have to just say it's a new era. It's JJ's team. It's JJ's time. We're going to still have some moves to make, but things are just getting started. We've got a jam-packed next 2 months coming, so stay tuned on all of our socials, and we'll keep you up to date as we ride through this whole offseason together. SKOL.
SKOL Vikes. You're listening to the Vikes Verified podcast.